This is Grow Omaha Uncut, where you can watch our radio show, including what goes on in the commercial breaks. And be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. Well, good morning and welcome to the Grow Omaha show on News Radio 1110 KFAB. We're brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center, along with D&M Roofing and Siding. My name is Jeff Beals, your co-host. This is the only show in the metro area that talks about the growth and development of your favorite city. And without any further ado, it's time to bring on my co-host, legendary real estate man, Trenton Magid.
You are too kind. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
And good morning to you, Trenton. Let's go straight into our news because here in a little bit, we're going to bring on Jay Noddle, and we're going to talk to Jay about some of the big things that are happening in the urban core. He's the head of the urban core committee and also president of the Streetcar Authority. So a lot to talk about there. But before we do that, it's time for our news of the week, which is brought to you by Eagle Mortgage. Holly Schneiderwind and her team at Eagle Mortgage do an outstanding job of helping you get the American dream. So if you're thinking about buying a house, FHA, VA, conventional loans, they do all of that. Just give one of their mortgage brokers a visit, sit down with them, learn about your best options, get that pre-approval letter. And of course, home buying season is just around the corner. You can find out more about them at eaglemortgagecompany.com. Well, Trenton, the first big news of the week is Amazon. The big regional distribution center has gone live in Sarpy County. This is more than 1 million square feet on the northeast corner of highways 50 and 370.
3 or 4 stories.
Oh, yeah. This thing's, when they first started talking about it, they kept calling it 700,000 square feet. And that is the floor plate size. Footprint. It doesn't take into account that there are multiple stories in there.
Well, you can see that for a long distance.
Yeah, if you're driving by on Interstate 80 and you look over to the south, it definitely sticks up pretty high there. It's kind of interesting because back in the olden days, there were a lot of those multi-story warehouses, down by the river in Omaha.
Not as functional.
But now you're seeing it like here, you got this huge brand new warehouse and it's more than one level.
It's good that it's finally open, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
The restaurants around there are happy about that. And the Steel Ridge project that Jay's worked on and other developments around there can definitely use those daytime workers and nighttime workers probably.
Well, and speaking of those workers, there are currently about 300 of them in that building now. That's projected to go up quite a bit as time goes along. It was originally supposed to open last summer, but was delayed because of supply chain issues. I think if there's any company that probably hates supply chain issues more than Amazon, I'd like to meet that company. The center joins a couple other massive tech companies, namely Facebook and Google, that are already along that corridor. So that's kind of like the Fortune 10 corridor all of a sudden, or the Fortune 20 corridor all of a sudden.
Absolutely. It's amazing how Google all over Omaha seems to be expanding the most.
Yeah, I mentioned this a while back, but a lot of people were surprised to hear it. In case you missed it, I'll say it again. The Omaha metro area is the home of the largest Google operational presence anywhere in the United States of America. So when you consider the 3 massive data centers.
And if you don't believe us, you can Google it.
You see what happens when you do that. All righty. We have some education development news. Benson High School is going to get a nice addition. It's a $6.6 million construction project. And this is interesting. It's going to be a healthcare services facility to help students going into healthcare. It'll include a 2-story healthcare addition and renovated north entrance. And Omaha Public Schools say this will be the first school-based clinic in the district to house multiple health providers. So be a clinic and an education facility for high school students.
Sounds like college credit opportunities.
Perhaps. And then staying on the medical theme, Children's Hospital and Medical Center plans to build a 60,000 square foot outpatient center northeast of 204th and Harrison Street. That's in the Coventry development.
Yep, just south of the ACX 12 Plus theaters.
It'll be $46 million, 2 stories, and will sit on looks like a 10-acre site. And then since healthcare seems to be a bit of a theme for the news here today, we'll finish up with this. Methodist Hospital is about halfway through an $18.6 million renovation that will result in the opening of 2 new units. And altogether, that will equal 50 additional beds. So what are those 2 units? A progressive care unit, which opened on the 4th floor of Methodist North Tower in December. and then a medical observation unit slated to open this summer that will serve patients who may need extra care and monitoring after a medical event or procedure. So medical development doesn't show any signs of slowing down.
I hope that doesn't mean that people are getting more sick.
Well, people are getting older, and with the baby boomer generation continuing to get older all the time, and I think maybe people are demanding more healthcare services or consuming more healthcare services.
More elective surgeries as well.
Yeah, all of that together. So
I wish I was taller.
Well, maybe there's a clinic for that. We will wrap it up with that. That is your news of the week, brought to you by Eagle Mortgage, eaglemortgagecompany.com. Going to take our first break of the hour, and when we come back, we're going to talk with Jay Noddle, a local real estate developer who volunteers as president of the Streetcar Authority and the Urban Core Committee. So many exciting things to talk about in our Urban Core. We're going to catch you up. It's going to be a fun conversation. You're listening to Grow Omaha, brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center and D&M Roofing and Siding. Back in a moment on News Radio 1110 KFAB.
I think that was a Ziggy at the help desk in the department store. Mm-hmm. Or it was like information, or it was like the complaints or something, and he goes up there and he goes, I wish I was taller.
I like that. I like that. All right, so, okay, we ready?
You got this where, do I have it where you want it?
Yeah, and I think, it's nice and close to it.
Can you move yours just a little bit? Yeah.
The problem is it snaps back, so how's that?
Yeah, that's
It's
good.
got snapback. Okay, are we ready?
Let's rock.
All right, let's rock. And welcome back to the show. Jeff Beal sitting next to Trenton Magid in the KFAB studio. This is Grow Omaha, brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center and also D&M Roofing and Siding.
I want to give a personal testimonial about D&M Roofing, Jeff. We had an issue at our family house and a couple roof leaks with all the ice on there and melting and everything. I made one call, and two of their expert technicians, Michael Hansen and Aaron Duncan, were on it. Within 90 minutes, I had Aaron was on the roof and solved the issue. And Eric Obremt has a great team of positive, talented people. So D&M Roofing, any commercial, any flat roof, any house, pitch roof, whatever you got, check out D&M Roofing.
And you can find out more about them at dndmroofing.com. Well, a few times a year, we try to bring on Jay Noddle onto the show. He is a well-known local community leader, real estate developer, and one of our sponsors on Grow Omaha. So it's a pleasure to welcome back. Jay, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. It's nice to be here this morning.
Well, thanks for joining us, and can't imagine you've been busy at all lately.
It's been really quiet.
Boring.
I must say, I don't think I remember a time in my 40-plus years working in Omaha where the commercial real estate industry and economic development in general in the region has been as active as it is right now. In spite of kind of a turbulent economy, we're pretty solid around here and very busy, all of us.
And you do work, Jay, a lot in Denver and other markets around the country. And you chose to move back from Denver to Omaha. And did you ever, in your wildest dreams, think that right now that Omaha would be where it is?
I really didn't. I don't think I knew what to expect back then. It's been a long time since I've been back. We're a heck of a community, and I think we all know that. The story about Omaha and the region becomes more and more widely known all the time, and some of the things you guys were talking about earlier, with Amazon and Google and Facebook and so many of the other great companies that have chosen to have one kind of a presence here or another, that word is spreading, and it's pretty remarkable, and it's kind of pinch myself often because to be a part of all this is really pretty exciting.
Well, we've got great leadership with the city and people like you and the volunteers, but also the public-private partnerships and the things that you're involved with. And there's a lot of other team members on these projects that I remember 2008 when I sold a building to Yahoo in La Vista, and there were multiple companies that weren't getting paid, but expertise engineers and other people that would come in there. And, they would love to some business on the come or whatever, but they weren't guaranteed the business. And on these boards like the Streetcar and the urban core, you've been head of the urban core for what, 6-8 years?
Well, I've been involved since the beginning, and so that's coming up on 5 years. I've actually just transitioned. I'm no longer the chair of the Urban Core Committee, which is kind of nice.
You're forgiven.
I shifted over kind of full time from a volunteer standpoint to the Streetcar Authority. But
okay.
There are an awful lot of people involved, and I think one of the things that makes Omaha and Nebraska special is that we all work together. Oftentimes, there's a lot of competitors in a given industry that come together to work together for the greater good of the community. And, as people visit our state and our city, our region, I think very regularly and almost every time they're very favorably impressed, if not amazed, at the spirit of cooperation and the community, the sense of community that we have in working together. It's special.
And the accessibility. If somebody has a good idea and they're not a total whack job, people will listen to them.
Absolutely. You can get an audience and get some very quick, not hasty, but kind of immediate opinions and observations. And again, that's how we are in this part of the country, and it's kind of the Omaha way.
Well, Jay, let's talk a little bit about the Streetcar, because we've come a long ways since this was announced about a year ago as a strong possibility. So many people have worked hard on it, made a lot of progress through all of the boxes that needed to be checked. Can you give us an idea about where we are in that process and what would some of the next steps be?
Sure. I'm great having the opportunity to do that, and we have come a long way. I think the first thing that's important for everybody to remember or realize is that this broader urban core strategy is what started all of this. And embedded in that strategy were, at the very beginning, about 16 big ideas or big moves. Along the way, when we got to publishing the final recommendations, it's only got 12 big moves in it because 4 big moves were already happening. The park project, the airport expansion, the steel house, and there were ideas already on how the former library site could be redeveloped. So that stuff had started. The Streetcar being one of the 12 big ideas in the plan that was approved by everyone, came to be in part because the other things that didn't make it into the plan, having already started, were in fact started. So the Streetcar Authority was formed. As we all know, it's populated by 7 people. 3 are appointed by the mayor, 3 are appointed by Metro Transit, and 1 is appointed by the chamber. I happen to be the chamber's appointee. Since the authority was formed, the city approved a redevelopment plan and agreement for the core of the city that is a 2-party agreement between the city of Omaha and the Omaha Streetcar Authority that provides sort of the rules of engagement, the ground rules on how property would be developed going forward in the core of the city. It carves out single-family residential, doesn't have really an impact on single-family residential from an ease to success, ease to permit, we'll say, standpoint, doesn't have an impact from a redevelopment standpoint. That was intentional to carve that out. But it sets forth guidelines on how commercial and residential developments can and should take place in the core of the city going forward, with a huge emphasis on housing. All different typologies of housing that you would rent, housing that you might own, all different shapes and sizes, with a focus on affordable and workforce housing. And early on, the Urban Core Committee determined and validated from work we did researching other communities that housing, jobs, and transportation within the core are kind of the three-legged stool. And they all go together. And if you think about all the places you travel to or have worked in, and the strength of those communities' cores, you find a lot of housing, you find a lot of jobs, and it's easy for people to move around within the core. That's where the Streetcar project came up. And research was done with the North America's leading professionals of all different kind of segments within the broader industry on how streetcar projects were put together in other communities and the impact of those projects. A decision was made here early on to make sure that the funding for the streetcar project came from revenue from new development, not existing development, but new development, and in so doing, not taxpayer dollars. So this redevelopment agreement that was approved contains provisions for tax increment financing from new development, a slice of which will be used to fund the repayment of bonds that are sold to pay for the streetcar project. So the city council has also approved 2 bond issues. The city finance department has not put those bonds on the market yet, but the 2 bond issues total about $440 million, and that's enough money to pay for the streetcar and the interest on those bonds over time. So those bonds will be sold at the direction of Stephen Curtis, the finance officer of the city of Omaha, and proceeds from TIF from new projects will be used to repay those bonds, not taxpayer money. So essentially, developers will agree and have agreed to increase the size of their TIF packages so that a slice of that TIF package, 25% in most of the core and 10% in the other parts of the core, will be used to repay those bonds. That's very fundamental to all of this. The city brought in a company called MuniCap, which is sort of the gold standard for bond opinions and investment recommendations, I guess you'd say, for TIF-funded bond issues, which is much different than other types of bond issues the city of Omaha sells. The other types of bond issues they sell come with some sort of city backing, like a lease purchase bond or a development bond or a street bond, something like that. So that's all been approved. The Streetcar Authority went through an RFP process for the design, the 100% design of the streetcar. There was a bid that was accepted, and the Streetcar Authority and the city are in the final stages of solidifying a contract with that team. The Streetcar Authority did the same thing for a construction manager general contractor. The selection committee is now working on reviewing those proposals, and I think in the next 3 weeks, there's likely to be a selection made, and then that'll move to a contract. So a lot of progress has been made in that regard. The design team and the Streetcar Authority, working with representatives of Mecca, have identified a site for the vehicle maintenance facility, which is down around the Mecca properties, kind of on the south end, sort of tucked under the viaducts down in there. And preliminary design's underway. Mecca's board will have to approve those things. So this is all subject to Mecca's board approving that, but that's underway. The procurement of the streetcars is underway. That process has started.
The cars themselves, the vehicles.
Cars themselves, the vehicles, there'll be 6 initially, and they take a long time to make. There's over 300 suppliers of parts for each streetcar. Kind of gives you a headache thinking about it. But you can imagine it's a long process. And interestingly enough, the largest single order of streetcars in America from any community is less than 10. So what we're studying is, can we combine with another city, and in this case maybe Portland, who has a need Portland's got a need for 11 cars. We have a need for 6. If we can combine forces, there's some savings that can be generated, but it's not that simple. Do we want the same parts and pieces in our cars that they want in their cars? How big are the batteries going to be? We'd like the Omaha Streetcar project, the initial route, to be what's called off-wire, meaning there's no wires, for a good portion of that route. That then helps to determine how big the batteries need to be. So are ours going to be the same? What's best for us the same as what's best for Portland? We don't know. But there is a way to study combining forces going forward in tandem, but giving ourselves kind of an off-ramp that if they need to go one direction and we want to go a different direction, we can kind of decouple from one another, no pun intended, and do our own thing. So there's a lot underway here.
That's a great overview and so eloquently stated where it makes sense.
So are we still thinking if all goes as planned, people will be writing these things in 2026?
We sure are. We don't see anything, haven't seen anything that causes us to think that that's not achievable. I think we're very much on schedule.
Okay, and we've got another minute in this segment, but Jay, the thing that's exciting for so many of us is the collateral development that will happen along these lines. We're already seeing it with Orbit, all sorts of things popping up in Orbit. Now you add the Streetcar, that whole Farnham-Harney corridor. If it's like a lot of other cities, probably just blow up.
And the amount of density, going up instead of going out to the farms, how important is density for this area?
Density is very important. And, one of the sort of things I've been saying to groups is that today, if you, let's say you live in the core of the city and you work in the core of the city, you have a parking stall. If you have a car, you have a parking stall. More often than not, you drive that car to work and you park there and you have another parking stall. And then maybe you got to go to the med center for a blood draw or something like that. And you drive up there, or you go out to lunch or dinner and you park again. Well, one person might use 3 or 4 parking stalls in the core of the city in any given day. The goal of this is to get it down to 1. And hopefully you don't need to move your car. So, there are different kinds of transit projects. This is not a transit project. This is a local circulator. And so, we're going to work real hard at kind of educating the public on the different kinds of transit projects. It's not light rail. It's not elevated. It's down at the street level. It's not fast. It moves with the speed of traffic. So these kinds of projects spur a tremendous amount of density all along the route. Whereas a light rail project, like what was done in Denver, those spur a lot of development at the stops. Mm-hmm. And everything in between really isn't affected by it. This is different.
Well, it's an exciting project, and appreciate you bringing us up to speed with it. Can't wait for it to get started and even be completed. We're going to take our middle of the show break, but when we come back, we're going to ask Jay to stay around because we're going to ask him about a couple of specific development projects that are on the drawing board. You're listening to Jeff and Trenton on Grow Omaha, brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center and D&M Roofing and Siding. Back in a moment on News Radio 1110 KFAB.
All right. In your group, you can, whatever you need, you can refer to your segment there because it's a nice cut, and link it or whatever, or
we might do that,
or refer to it.
It'd be good for you guys too.
Oh yeah, we'd love that.
Totally.
Yeah, because Chris chops it all up and has each segment available on video. Yeah,
that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, so we can get that to you guys. So, well, this one we'll just go through the projects, and we'll have about 9 minutes altogether.
Don't forget to get the Noddle Company's development spotlight in there.
Yeah, this is good.
Jay can do it.
We'll have a little fun with that. All right, ready? Okay, 3, 2, 1. And welcome back to the show. Jeff Beals and Trenton Magid with you. The show is brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center and D&M Roofing and Siding. Hey, if you have any trouble with that car, scratches, dents, scrapes with all of those slippery roads out there, just give Dingman's a call. 4 metro area locations, and nobody does a better job of making your vehicle as good as new. Dingman's Collision Center. Well, it's now time for our commercial real estate development spotlight of the week, brought to you by Noddle Companies. going to be a little bit different this week. It's kind of like a live report. We've got Jay Noddle himself with us, so we're just going to talk about a couple of projects that Noddle Companies has underway in the metro area, Jay. And I think let's start with the Builders District downtown, North Downtown.
Okay, well, so the Builders District is in the core of the city, not on the streetcar lines, I might add. It is a development that's been underway for about 6 years. Anchored by Kiewit's headquarters and Kiewit University, their training facility, leadership and other kinds of training, sandwiched between Creighton University and the Mecca facilities. We have what we call 1501 Mike Fahey, which is the area's first new timber office building out of the ground. It's about 120,000 square feet, and we just started.
4 stories.
4 stories, thank you. Probably the coolest building, at least in my estimation, we've done. It's, for me personally, it's really exciting.
I want to hear about the park around there. Sam, your son, who's also working with you, talked about how this park is very unique.
It is. Sam Noddle is kind of leading the effort at Noddle Companies in a few different areas, but one of them are experiential food and beverage developments. And based on what we've learned at Exarban Village with the food hall called the Inner Rail and Sonny's, we're developing a park in the Builders District that's going to have a great food and beverage component in it, a place for dogs, a little bit of recreation. It's planned to have a giant screen that can be used for all kinds of different events. And we're starting as soon as the weather gets nice. It'll be about acre and a half, permanent, and with a little good fortune, supply chain wise and weather wise, the park should be open for some activities in 2023.
I like how the Builders District is really a connector. It's not meant to replace Jean Leahy Mall. It's not meant to replace Millwork Commons, but it's connecting Millwork Commons on the north, the Capital District, and the Old Market on the south.
Yes, absolutely. You know, there's all kinds of different styles of development. Builders District is truly mixed use. When all is said and done, there'll probably be 700 or 800,000 square feet of office space. There could be as many as 700 apartments in the development, or I should say living spaces, because some will be condos and some will be apartments. We're working on a hotel now, and lots of retail that can support that development itself, but also fills the gap between all those other developments you mentioned. And you know, it connects Creighton, the Creighton campus, with everything else that you mentioned, Trenton. So it's a little different because it's a big infill.
It's about 37 acres, maybe. 33.
I don't know.
I put a line around it. I want to say either 33 or 36 acres.
That's pretty close, I would say. Effectively 10 full blocks.
Wow.
So, Jay, we want to keep it urban and talk about a couple of residential projects at 38th and Dewey and 54th and Leavenworth.
Yeah, they're great projects. 38th and Dewey is 6 luxury townhomes. We've closed on 5 of the 6, and we're under contract on number 6, so we're feeling like we can see the end there.
They're all built out?
All built out. And then we're underway with 20, little different style, a little bit different price point at 54th and Leavenworth, just out of the ground. And we have taken reservations on the first couple already. It's really interesting, this kind of residential development in the core. Highly, highly sought after. We haven't seen a lot of it yet. We completed one at 64th and Shirley in Exarban Village. That was our first one, then Dewey Row, and now 54th and Leavenworth.
The last few years, Noddle Companies has really gotten into those condos and apartments. And
yeah, it's what happens when you gather up a group of really talented younger people that are interested in the core of the city, and they say, we want to be part of this team, but you got to let us run a little bit. And somehow we and I have found it within myself to gather up the courage to let this group run, and they're doing a terrific job.
Well, speaking of those 54th and Leavenworth units, what's the timeline for those? When do you think those will be done, and what will the amenities be?
Well, the first units will start to deliver in late 2023, and there's a series of, I think, 4 delivery dates, 4 kind of phases that are actually grouped pretty close together. And these units are good size. They're 2,000 to 3,000 square feet, depending on which one you like, and there are 3 stories. You can put a rooftop deck. Above, you can put an elevator in it if you want, one of those tubes that at least moves packages, if not people. They've got 2-car garages, private 2-car garages contained in each unit. It's a great product, and it fits right into the neighborhood.
So the tenants can actually pick whether they have a rooftop unit or if they have the elevator?
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
There's kind of a menu of things you can add. And so we're excited about that.
And they're ownership units there.
These are ownership units, yes.
Okay, and so let's go, before we run out of time, I do want to get out to Village Point Medical Center campus. That construction of the 3-story brick building right there, it's just kind of on the southwest corner of the mall, of the retail property, if you will. It's coming along nicely.
Yeah, we're almost done. We acquired that campus a few years ago. From a friend of Trenton's.
Yeah.
And
looks kind of like me.
Part of the plan was to put together a full campus plan that would allow for potentially 2 more buildings so that the Med Center and Nebraska Medicine could grow and grow and grow. Children's Hospital has a significant space within the original 2 buildings, and they're staying, at least for now. And I don't think the project you talked about earlier changes that, the one they're doing on 204th Street. But we are just about complete with the 3rd building. It delivers about 90,000 square feet of clinical space. And I would expect that by late spring, they'll be up and operational, and it'll be fully occupied.
And that's all Nebraska Medicine?
That's correct, yes.
And then that whole Village Point area, though, I mean, it continues to just thrive. I mean, you're always seeing new tenants coming in there. Occupancy among retailers at Village Point has stayed very, very healthy. People love that stretch of West Dodge from 168th to 180th.
Absolutely. It's been really successful. And as you said, there's a refresh of tenants taking place in the Village Point shopping area, which is always good. And it's solid, and it's going to stay that way for a long time. And for the Med Center and Nebraska Medicine, this really provides their West Omaha anchor, and you can go there and really receive almost any kind of care that you're looking for, and not have to go to the main Med Center campus.
So give us a report on what's happening on the southwest corner of 180th and West Dodge Road.
On the southwest corner of 180th and West Dodge Road. We were involved in that for a period of time. Noddle Companies is no longer involved in that. The landowner there wanted to do something a little bit different. Development projects pivot along the way, and they had a reason to pivot, and that's okay. Not everything goes exactly the way you draw it up at the very beginning. They're going to do some great things. That's Broadmoor Development Company, and we're busy. And as you can tell, we don't have one part of Omaha that takes priority over another part of Omaha. We're an equal area developer, that's for sure.
So one last quick question. I'm really intrigued by all this residential work that you guys are doing, and you've mentioned a couple of projects, and you talked about these talented people on the team. Do you see that happening more and more? Are you guys looking at future urban residential projects like those?
Oh, absolutely. And not only are we looking at more, but I think that it will be a product type that many development companies get involved in over time. We just bought another site. We have another site at 63rd and Shirley that we just closed on. It's right just on the eastern edge of Exarban Village. Right across the street, actually. And, we're playing with plans.
Urban renewal, you got to love it.
That might deliver 6 more, or maybe it's 8. We don't quite know yet, but it's popular. And if you take a hard look at cities like Chicago or Denver or Atlanta and look what happens in their core, they're full of all different kinds of what I'll call eclectic residential development. And we're going to see more and more of that here.
Well, Jay, we appreciate you sharing all this information with us. Thank you for your sponsorship of Grow Omaha. And more importantly, thank you for all the leadership you're giving the community. It's a great time to be in this town, and there's so much for us to look forward to. You know, we're going to ask you back in a few months for an update.
Well, I hope you do. And, we're really blessed to be here in this community and have the opportunities to participate like we do.
All right, that's Jay Noddle, CEO of Noddle Companies, and we are going to take our final break of the hour. When we come back, it'll be time for the Turner Construction Lightning Round on News Radio 1110 KFAB.
All right,
time do we have left?
stuff.
So we'll be
About 4 minutes.
So can you stick around for 4 minutes?
Yeah, I got to meet Brinker in 20 minutes.
Excellent.
Okay, if you guys want to chat about something, I could just whip this out myself really fast.
Either way.
Okay, if you want time, it's up to you.
No, we're good.
Okay, let's finish it real fast. Okay, so I'd say about 4:45. 4:45 is what we got. Cool. All right. Let's go through this. And we are set. Good.
Yep.
And welcome back to the show, Grow Omaha, News Radio 1110 KFAB. Jeff Beals and Trenton Maggot at your service. It is time for the lightning round, in which we talk about a lot of things in a very short period of time. It's brought to you by Turner Construction. Turner Construction is building Omaha, building for the future, big international construction firm that in Omaha is like your small town contractor in that they work very closely with their clients, listen carefully, and they're very dedicated at Turner Construction to building our construction workforce. In fact, a lot of people that we've talked to on Grow Omaha have had working relationships with Turner, and they said, geez, it's a great place to work. And those people who have used them for their projects say, we've been so happy with the project, the price, and the service we got while the project was underway. Turner Construction, sponsor of the Grow Omaha Lightning Round. So Trenton, we've got a new brew pub planned for Ashland. It's going to be called the Ashland Brewing Company, the Ashland Brewing Company. And
big ones, like 12,000 feet.
Yeah, huge. To be specific, 10,600.
Okay.
But we're talking about 4 pickleball courts, a rooftop deck, outdoor seating around a fire pit, and it will open sometime later this year near Highways 6 and 66 in Ashland. So that's coming along nicely. Got a little bit of good economic news for you. Creighton University puts out a bunch of reports led by Dr. Ernie Goss, and the most recent one is the Rural Main Street Economy Report. And it takes into account rural economies in the 9-state region. And the lead paragraph says, after 6 straight months of below growth neutral readings, the Rural Main Street Index from Creighton University climbed above growth neutral. And so that's encouraging. So it had been declining for a while. We keep hearing a lot of economic warnings. That one's a pretty good sign. So we have some ribbon cuttings on the docket. We talked about Coffee Society Cafe in the previous show, but we've got some more details. There are actually going to be 2 locations. We only talked about one.
Really?
Yeah. So the first ribbon cutting is February 7th at 122 North Washington Street in Papillion. And then the one we talked about is the 10748 Virginia Plaza location in La Vista. That ribbon cutting is February 27th, but I believe they're already open.
Probably a soft opening, I'm guessing.
Yeah, a lot of times these retailers will do the official ribbon cutting after they've been open for a little while and have had a chance to work out some of the kinks. Another ribbon cutting is planned for January 31st for Pain West. That's Pain, Pain West. It's a spine health and pain management center. They don't give you pain there. They fix your pain there. 701 Pinnacle Drive in Papillion, January 31st. And since we were talking about coffee, we've got yet another coffee place that's holding a grand opening, Green Beans Coffee, which has a location near 168th and Harrison. We'll have a ribbon cutting February 10th at 3512 Sampson Way in Bellevue. We have Bob and Willie's Wonder Bowl is opening a second location. First one is in the Blackstone District. They're going to put one out at Regency Landing, I-680, and Pacific Street. And then real quickly, we wanted to give you a couple little quick updates from the NP Dodge quarterly market report. In the retail market, retail is doing a lot better than people think. Vacancy is down to 4.6% at the end of last year.
That's impressive.
I couldn't believe that when I saw those statistics. And we at the end of the year, we had 937,000 more square feet of retail space absorbed than the year before that. I think a lot of people were shocked by that.
Yeah.
And that was a refreshing statistic for us to see and to find. With that, we are out of time, and that concludes your Turner Construction Lightning Round and the rest of the whole show, for that matter. So we hope everyone has a great week. I'm Jeff Beals.
And I'm Trenton Magid.
You've been listening to Grow Omaha, brought to you by Dingman's Collision Center, D&M Roofing, and Turner Construction. We'll chat with you next week at 9 o'clock right here on News Radio 1110 KFAB. If you like this video, be sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And remember, Grow Omaha is not just media. This is a mission. We are trying to build up Omaha and make it an even better place. We can only do that with your help. Share this video with your friends, neighbors, and family.